NFTs, crypto security, and more.
That opens up a real broad category, doesn't it?
I think you're going out live to the world.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, everybody! Thanks for joining here today. And you know, I'm passionate about digital and aviation, and so it's amazing for me to have an opportunity to be able to have this conversation. I'll just start out by saying, you know, I'm going to talk about digital and aviation, specifically revolving around Web3, and I'm going to get into some details of it. But the main thing I'm getting toward, and I got to give you a little bit of context at the beginning, but the main thing I'm driving toward is use cases, which is toward the middle of this. And the reason I'm doing that is to give you a preview, is because when I started doing this, I didn't understand all the possibilities and all the use cases. And so that's really, you know, where I'm going. So I'm going to start out by just giving you a little bit about myself. About 5 years ago, I was at an aircraft IT conference, and somebody brought up the word digital twin. And I don't know why I didn't know what it was, but I didn't know what it was. And now you're sitting there thinking, this guy didn't know what a digital twin was. Well, I didn't. Maybe I didn't understand the full application of it. And then about 4 years ago, you know, I did my very first webinar on blockchain. And what I did was I went out and found some people that had a use case where they were implementing blockchain. And I said, let's talk about it. Let's do a webinar and let's just have a conversation about it. And then about 3 years ago, I got interested in cryptocurrency, and my son, he got me involved in cryptocurrency. And right about now, I'm starting to lose some of you because you're saying cryptocurrency, you know, market's down. I don't even know if I want to listen to this anymore, but I want you to listen, because cryptocurrency is not blockchain, okay? Cryptocurrency is a subset of blockchain, all right? And then about 2 years ago, I called a friend and I said, you know, what's an NFT? And I didn't even know what an NFT was, what a non-fungible token was, all right? And I'm just going to do a few things to help people really understand the landscape of what this is really about. And then, you know, ever since, I've just seen increasing interest in this kind of technology. And so I'm just gonna mention to you something about myself. First of all, is that, you know, I've been in the industry for 40 years, and, you know I don't look that old. It's the gray hair, but I have been, really, okay? And I've implemented really hundreds of systems. I've collaborated really literally with thousands of companies, and I've traveled millions of miles. And the reason I say that is because I've been all around the world, and I've visited MROs and OEMs and airlines all around the world for many, many years. And so maybe it's just that I've seen so much, and maybe that's what causes me to have such a drive and passion, you know, for optimization of efficiency really within travel. So for me, I just want to tell you who I am. You know, where did this start? All right, my dad would take me as a young boy to the airport, and I remember it at Crystal Airport in Minneapolis. Do you know where Crystal Airport in Minneapolis is? Maybe you just have sat in an airport before, okay? So my dad would take me, and we would watch the airplanes take off. And I had this growing just interest in aviation that was really just part of me. And then when I was 13 years old, my dad took me to the Oshkosh fly-in in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, the EAA fly-in, now called AirVenture. And he put me in the right seat of a Ford Trimotor, and it was all over at that point. I went home, started learning how to fly. I was flying airplanes before I could drive a car. And, you know, I went on to get a commercial instrument multi-engine license. I'm an A&P. I have an engineering degree. I've started a lot of companies. And so that's really my background, really within, you know, aviation is what it really is. But here's one thing, is that there was a struggle. I really saw a struggle. I went to work at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft Company working on the F-18. It's where I met my wife, actually. That's why I had to go there. And they weren't doing any digital at that time in manufacturing. Basically, we were doing planning and scheduling on paper. We were drawing out schedules on paper and implementing block upgrades on the F-18. And the first project I ever worked on was the Blue Angels. And it was a struggle. And you know, I went on to struggle with having the computer technology I needed when I went on to work at Northwest Airlines, now Delta. I brought my own computer because they didn't have computers at that time. I couldn't go from having a computer to not having one. I literally brought my own computer to work. And then I struggled with old IT systems as I managed training and technical publications, and I managed engineering, and I managed some of the shops at those times. And really, that's really where the struggle was. And you might say to yourself, we still struggle with that today. Well, yeah, it's a different struggle, all right? But here's the thing, is that I recognized a pattern in all of this, okay? A pattern is that I recognize that we need to focus on the business challenges that exist. What is the real business challenge that we were dealing with? What was the struggle really revolving around? You know, what's the current business process that exists? What is the technology that's available around us? Most of you are here today because you're interested in aviation and digital, and you're wanting to understand maybe some of the vendors that are here. You want to understand some of the current trends, where are things going. We need to understand the landscape around us. And the technology and process solution was a common pattern. If you implemented technology before process, many times you were putting in things which weren't needed and you had to replace them. If you're implementing process and no technology, you're not getting optimization. And so we had to put those things together. So really, if we don't understand the world of technology opportunity around us, how can we really envision and implement a solution? You say, well, how does this now relate into blockchain? Well, I'm going to talk about Web3, and I'm going to talk about blockchain and how that's some of the new landscape really that's around us. So I decided to help people understand the blockchain landscape. I want you to understand today that I'm not like, you need to implement blockchain. This is where your world, you need to be here. No, I decided that I wanted to help people better understand it because it was an emerging technology which I wanted to understand, and I saw many people around me that wanted to understand, and so I tried to bring it to the forefront. And so really, what was the problem? People tell me, I have these conversations with people, we don't need a blockchain, we have a database. Well, maybe you don't need one. What's the business case for it, okay? We don't need a blockchain, we have messaging and APIs. I don't need to have something that's better than that. Okay, well, maybe you don't, all right? But there's a technology out there that maybe you need to be looking at. We don't need blockchain, we have data lakes and warehouses. Okay, well, maybe in your application you do or you don't. What I am striving to try to do is help people understand what that technology opportunity is around blockchain. So now what, all right? I went to a business associate at a large technology company, and I asked if I could have someone in their organization. This is a technology company which is in every one of your computers. And I asked him, I said, you know, would you be willing to come and talk in a series I was going to do about blockchain? And he literally said, what does blockchain have to do with aviation, all right? And I don't hold that against that person. There's just lack of awareness at that point. And then I spoke with a couple of different CEOs, and I said, hey, I'd like to have you participate in this series I'm going to do where I'm going to talk about blockchain and aviation this summer. And they said, what's the application of blockchain in aviation? And then last Friday, you know, I had a conversation with an IT person, and we were in the middle of this meeting, and we were talking about this, and the word blockchain came up, and he's the CEO of a high-tech company doing AI and ML, and he said, what? There's no blockchain in aviation. And so, listen, I don't hold that against anybody. What I just say is that there needs to be an increased understanding of the technology that's around us so we can best leverage it and create the greatest efficiency from the things that are around us. That's really the message that I have here today. So let's go to blockchain and aviation, all right? About 3 months ago, I embarked on this journey, and I said, I want to do something to help people understand blockchain and aviation. So I committed to doing an 8-week series. You know, I do a lot of things on social media. I've actually done about 1,000 live broadcasts with different companies. I bring companies in, I interview them, I learn about what they're doing, and I incorporate that really into my knowledge bank of information. And I said, I'm going to do a series on blockchain and aviation. I'm going to see how it goes, right? And I contacted a bunch of different companies. I contacted about 50 or 60 different companies, and I found 24 different sessions I was going to do where we were going to focus on blockchain and aviation, right? And so that's really that's where it started 3 months ago. And I ran this 24-episode live broadcast over 8 weeks. And if you think it's hard to pull together, you know, one live broadcast, try to pull together and coordinate 24 of them over 8 weeks in 2 months. It's really difficult because the schedules are moving, and you know, it takes a lot of time. So I interviewed innovators and leaders and different business owners who are implementing blockchain. And this is really what I want to talk to you about today. I want you to open your eyes about some of the use cases. I actually, I about a year ago would run some clubhouse rooms on aviation, aerospace, and people would join and we'd have audio conversations. I stopped doing that because I got too busy. And then I opened up another one last week, and one of the guys said on the clubhouse, he says, I'm going down to the conference. He says, I'm going to go watch this. I don't know if you're in the room here, but the guy said, I'm coming down here because I want to watch this presentation. And he said, because the problem is that I don't know what use cases there are. I know people say blockchain, 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 but what's the use cases? So that's where we're going to go here today. All right, so first, in order for me to do this, I just want to give you a couple slides about blockchain so you can kind of zero in on really, you know, what it is and how it's different than anything else that exists out there. And so there's a lot of things that people need to learn about technology, including blockchain, and I want to give you a few key things. But it's no different than anything else. What's the who, what, when, where, why, and how of what you're trying to do? That's really what it boils down to. So we'll hit on a couple of those things, okay? What's the evolution of the web? You know, Web 1.0, I was working at Jeppesen back when Web 1.0 came out, and the training guy said, the internet will never happen. It'll never occur, all right? Well, I don't blame him for not believing that it would go, but we just can't predict and see the future. But Web 1.0 was back in the 90s where we had browsers and we moved into things like Facebook, and then Web 2.0 meant that we put in place things like social networks. And now we started having our phone where we could get to Airbnb and get to different things like that. And it became mobile and really cloud-driven computing. And now as we go into Web 3.0, we're talking about, you know, AI-driven things and decentralized applications, and we're talking about different technologies that are, you know, built on the blockchain. Now, just for quick clarification, if you're a blockchain person, you might be on the camp of saying there's no such thing as Web3. All right, Elon Musk came out and said Web3 doesn't exist. All right, he said it's just a gradual evolution of one to whatever, is what it is. All right, so if somebody's arguing with you over whether there's a Web 1, 2, and 3, it doesn't matter to me. What we have is we have advancing technology, which is leveraging, decentralized applications on the internet. Okay, so that's really what it is. All right, so let's go on. So next, really, what is blockchain? Just one slide about what is blockchain. Okay, blockchain is really putting applications, or it's accessing data on a distributed ledger, and we're sharing, information across our business network. We're using cryptographic or crypto transactions is what we're doing, and we're doing that within a decentralized architecture. We have different security protocols, which give us, in many cases, advanced security, and when those security protocols aren't followed, we have less security, okay? And it's still a maturing, industry. We have different business rules and validation. We have a concept where when something is published to the blockchain, it's immutable. With my son, we published some things to the blockchain yesterday. I made a mistake. It's there forever. It's never going to go away. It's on the internet, okay? And some of it's private and confidential. And so just the concept, think about it for a minute, is what we're talking about is it's a decentralized distributed data ledger that really uses peer-to-peer consensus or talking to one another, in the exchange of information. And there's other advantages and disadvantages that roll around it, but for the purposes of our discussion, that's what we're talking about today. Okay, I want to bring in one of my guests. This actually was the last guest on my 24-episode series, and he was Horst Trebelmeyer. He's a professor at International Model University in Vienna, and he's really an expert on blockchain. And it was such a pleasure to talk with him about these things. And the next slide, I'm going to tell you about the concept that he pointed out, which really rang to me, and I wanted to share that with you. But he put up this little slide, and he said, hey, we have all sorts of different things that are happening today. We have investment or financial world. We have supply chain management that's occurring. We have payments, and we have loyalty programs, and we have NFTs, and we have digital identities, and we have air traffic management. And all those things are high generalized use cases that we're dealing with, today. But the next thing is what he said to me is what really rung, true to me, all right? And he said, all blockchains are not created equal. If you walk in here today and say, crypto, it's not going to go, I don't think it's going to happen, then, and you say blockchain isn't going to work, that's not the message, that exists today. Really, we have crypto, NFTs, and blockchain applications. They're not all created equal. They're on different paths. If you're looking at the financial world and you're looking at cryptocurrency, for example, yes, there's ups and downs. And our world is the US. In other parts of the world, they've spent more time putting regulations in place in order to be able to make it more successful faster in some areas, okay? But our SEC in the United States is spending time right now trying to figure out what the rules and regulations and the guidelines are. And so cryptocurrency has been a bit rocky. I have a question for all of you out there. Help me out with this. Who holds cryptocurrency? Can you help me? Just give me your hand up. Who holds cryptocurrency? I have maybe less than 5% of the people in the room, okay? In the United States, about 19% of the people in the US hold a digital wallet, and they hold cryptocurrency. They may or may not use it, so there's a smaller fraction of that. Maybe 5% of those people actually use it. And since typically we see aviation, because it's conservative and it's regulated and we have risks we have to manage, we typically see some of those things lagging behind even further. So maybe 1% of the people, in aviation are even involved in blockchain or cryptocurrency or something like that. However, it is moving forward, and I'm going to give you some examples. But here, it's kind of like saying I need information technology, all right? You need IT, you need a computer. Well, what are you going to do with it? Or do you need a phone, or do you need an MRO system, all right? And so you can't just say that we need blockchain because it's way too broad. It's a superset. And each of those things are moving forward on their different path and under different regulations and have different business purposes and application. And so we can't speak of it generically other than it's a term that says that we have AircraftIT, we have digital, all right? That's at the high level that we're dealing with. Well, we have digital, and then we have blockchain, and we have lots of things under that, just like we have lots of other technologies that revolve under that. So why can't you compare, crypto market or NFTs, to blockchain applications? Because they're all different. It's a totally different category. And I'm going to share with you today different ways in which some of these things are being executed or being accomplished. All right, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about what people are doing today. I'm going to sort of help you get started in what some of your innovation is, just to get some ideas going. And please don't be offended if you already know some of these things, or I welcome conversation And I've learned so much from the people that I've worked with. And if you want to engage with me and have a conversation about this, I had a lively discussion with a friend of mine who has a company, and he says, we don't need blockchain. I talked to the CEO of Kraken, and he said, I don't need it. All right, well, maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe it's not right for your application. All right, so there's a lot of discussion that has to occur. I've really learned so much, but join me for a quick tour. All right, I want to start out by saying I'm not affiliated with any of these companies. I've done an initial review of them. I've learned a lot of things. It's been very interesting, and I've learned some use cases that are so interesting to me. And there's a term in blockchain and cryptocurrency that's DYOR, do your own research. Don't rely on somebody else's research. Do your own research, or go to an expert, or hire a consultant, or and collaborate and learn, but don't just do something without understanding it. All right. So let's jump into some of these things. We see a lot of companies which are going to supply chain, and there happens to be one that I had on my broadcasts over those 24 episodes called Real Variable. And they're doing supply chain, they're doing parts track and trace, they're doing warranty, and what they're doing is they're actually they've created, and it's in production. They have a production platform in which they're onboarding vendors onto, where they can now track parts all the way through the process from beginning to end, and they're doing it on a blockchain for a lot of different reasons, and they're actually being very successful in doing that. It's quite interesting to me. Next is records and data leveraging NFTs. Now, I want to take a quick pause because I didn't really say what an NFT was. I didn't know what an NFT was 2 years ago. I called up a friend who was implementing something that was a funny picture of an ape, and they were selling it, and people were paying $1 million for it. And I said, what the heck is an NFT? I don't even understand what it is. And so I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but I'm going to simplify it down to this. It's a token, or it's a digital certificate, or it's a record. And what happens is it gets attached to something. When I worked on the 787 at Boeing, we had certificates which authorized access to the ground systems for the 787, okay? And it's no different than a certificate which has something attached to it which creates access or authorization for other things, all right? That's what a non-fungible token is, all right? And so what this company is doing, they're called AircraftIT. They have a platform they've created on the blockchain, and they're allowing people to upload records and information onto the blockchain, and they're making them NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And then they become a certificate that can move with that part or with that airplane, for history, for eternity. And there's so many things to learn about this. On my website, I have replays of all this stuff on my YouTube. And if you wanted to go back and enjoy yourself with, 45 hours of information about blockchain and aviation, you can go learn more about this, but I can't tell you everything in 30 minutes, all right? But there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. But what these guys are doing is they're using non-fungible tokens and publishing them on the blockchain as a place to be able to save aircraft and part information and history. Very interesting. And then I interviewed a company that's in Bangkok. I'm hoping to be able to meet them when I go to the AircraftIT in Bangkok next month. And I've never met them. I just met them virtually. Very interesting company, blockchain platform in which they're allowing people to upload and track assets, aircraft assets. And what they're doing is they're allowing you to be able to manage your assets on a blockchain is what they're doing. They're already in production with several companies. And so again, these are not future innovative hypothetical ideas. They're literally in production. The next one I met was so very interesting. We learned a lot about air traffic management and uncrewed traffic management. Is that it's predicted that drones are going to grow, uncrewed traffic is going to grow by about 10-fold in the next few years, all right? Our air traffic system today is stretched to its very limit, and it's safe and it's efficient, but if you lived in the UK, you know that the ATM in London, in the middle of summer, they said, stop flying to London, we can't handle any more traffic, all right? I flew through Dublin, and I experienced some of that in Dublin, but so our systems are maxed out, and we're saying, how are we going to get more efficiency? What can we do? Well, here's a company here called Tech Tower that was part of an initiative that CETA actually led, and there was 15 or 16 different companies and universities, and John over here is going to talk about Cranfield University, and Cranfield University was one of those. And so they all got together and they envisioned, how can we use blockchain and use it in air traffic management? And they did some real live implementations of it, and they're in process of growing that. And this is another area where we're seeing implementation of blockchain. And one of the key things I'll say about this is that trust and security became a core element of success when you're exchanging information between regulatory authorities for air traffic management. And they found ways in which the blockchain can increase trust and security. So that's a main point there. Okay, next. I actually did not interview this company, but I thought it was so interesting that I wanted to put it up. But you know, LexisNexis has put up a chain link on blockchain, and what they're doing is they're actually exchanging operational flight data, and they're making that service available to get operational flight data, you know, on the blockchain. Another production kind of an implementation of blockchain. Next, I had a gentleman from Emirates who was on this broadcast with me, and we talked about you know, skills and qualifications and customer and hospitality. And he said, hey, one of the problems is that, you know, I'm an A&P, I have a card in my wallet, and you can go online and you can find out that I have a valid license. But, you know, the skills and qualifications that we might acquire at an airline, you know, don't necessarily carry on from place to place. Some of them are not able to be carried from place to place, and some of them are. But the point is that we can bring these skills and qualifications with us. Next, a really interesting company which is providing, this isn't the way they would describe it, but they're providing a middleware, okay? They're providing a blockchain layer which is allowing tier ones, airlines, MROs to be able to leverage the data that they already have on a blockchain and connect other applications to it to be able to optimize data and analytics against that data on the blockchain. So very interesting. NFTs, this was so cool, I love this, is that Air Baltic started an NFT program where they were using non-fungible tokens as their, think of it as your mileage card. They started out by publishing NFTs and they turned it into their loyalty program. And they basically have different airplanes that you can say, I like that one, I relate with that one, but they're looking at points and loyalty programs, different elite tier benefits, stamp cards, and these little planies, NFTs they call it. And if you want to look at an interesting project, go take a look at what they're doing. That's so interesting. This is, the next two are totally my favorites. You have to listen to this carefully, all right? These are totally my favorites. TravelX is a company in Argentina that what they did is they created the ability, well, I have to ask you a question first. Is who's ever been on a canceled flight and you lost your ticket, okay? After the flight was canceled, it disappeared and you couldn't find it ever again, and they go, well, what was the e-ticket number? We'll look it up for you. I don't know what the e-ticket number was. I have no idea what it was, okay? Well, what TravelX has done is they have now created a platform in which a ticket is an NFT, all right? You actually can hold that ticket in your own personal wallet. You can exchange it for other flights on that airline, and they're working on bringing in other airlines so you can exchange them with other airlines or other family members or business associates and have greater flexibility in your tickets that you have. They did their first one with Air Europa, and the guy's name is, you know, Juan Pablo Laface, and he's the CEO of the company, or the founder of the company. And what he told me is, he said, you know, don't focus on this, but I have to tell you this, is that they sold their first one at the base of the Eiffel Tower, and it sold for $1,002,000, their first ticket, because it was the first NFT ticket ever. And he said, that's not the point though, Mark. He said, the point is we're building this platform which is changing the world in the way that tickets are being exchanged. And I love that. This next one is another one of my favorites. This company, Nick Scott, he's currently a pilot for a major airline based in Denver. They have green airplanes. And he flies those airplanes. And he started this project called ETH Jets, all right? And what you do is you buy an NFT and you have access to business jets. And you go, what do you mean you have access to business jets? Well, here's a situation. Chartered business jets usually fly one way empty. Usually, not always, but usually they do. And he went to those companies and said, hey, could I sell those empty leg flights? And they said, yeah, we're flying empty anyways. And so right now, for as little as $1,200, you can buy a business jet with 6 or 7 seats on it and fly your friends wherever that jet's going. I've never had that kind of access before. It's incredible what people are doing, you know, with these kind of things. It's amazing. Next, I want to tell you about who we are, because I had all these ideas and I'm like, all these innovations in my head, and I'm like, how can I leverage this in my business? I'm not an airline, I'm not an MRO. I help airlines and MROs do things, but how could I just implement something in my business? What could I do? Well, what do? Listen, my company is digital consulting. We do digital transformation and we do implementations. That's the one thing that we do. Second thing we do is contract sales and marketing. Third thing that we do is I help people with mergers and acquisitions and get them access to money so that they can either grow or people can buy their companies. But one of the things that I told you that I did is with literally over 1,000 people, I do interviews like this, what you're seeing on the screen. And so I put people on the stage of my network, and I have people walk up to me like these guys down here. They said, oh, you're the guy on LinkedIn. I've seen you before, you know? And I'm like, all right, okay, I am. I like to get the message out with my enthusiasm and passion about digital and aviation. And I do that from a stage. And so these are the kind of things we do. And I said, how could I leverage blockchain in that, all right? So we created an NFT project is what we did. All right, and what I did was I said, I have valuable products and services. They're utilities, just like if you were offering business, empty legs on a business jet. I created an NFT project and I said, I'm going to sell NFTs, and I called it Aviator Peeps. And why do I call it Aviator Peeps? Because to me, is a connection with you and connection with people in the industry is really what makes this work. We have networking, and we connect with people, and we have experiences. And I fly to Bangkok and I learn about people, and I go to Dubai and I hold a hawk, or a falcon, and and I'm connecting with people. And so I said, how can I leverage my desire to connect people through aviation and transportation through a utility NFT? So what I did was I created 3 classes of utility NFT. I created one that was called Stages, and if you hold one of my Stages NFTs, you get access to our stage, and I do interviews with you or webinars. If you hold the admission one, you have access to our knowledge portal where we have webinars and live training and things like that. And then finally, we have a 3rd class called a Connect, and what it is just a collectible. And my daughter works for a major animation studio, and she helped me work with artists around the world to actually create these, and we're actually giving back to the artists. If somebody buys one of these, we actually give a portion of it back to the artist, is what we do. And so it's exciting to us to be involved in doing something like this. And so the bottom line here is what I did. I combined the services of my business into what's called a utility NFT, and I'm trying to leverage the momentum of blockchain to help me to be able to sell my services. All right, I'm just like anybody else. I want to grow my business, and I'm trying to find ways to do that. So this is how I tried to implement blockchain in my business, and you can find creative and innovative ways to be able to do it in your own business. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Is that blockchain in aviation? What's the main point? This is what it is. Technology is here. Use it as you would any other technology. That's all I can say. All right, I'm not a blockchain guy. I'm enthusiastic and passionate about it. I'm a digital and aviation guy, and this is one tool that I've found that I'm excited about. You need to understand the technology. You need to evaluate it, and you need to apply it as the business case dictates. You don't just need to implement blockchain. You need to understand, evaluate, and apply as it dictates, okay? And don't forget, they talked about this morning already. Change provides opportunity. Don't miss the wave. My daughter's a surfer, and she's told me that if you get behind the wave, you're done, all right? The wave is gone, all right? But if you're in front of the wave and you can catch it, it'll push you along like never before. And so this digital wave is moving, and it's moving faster ever since COVID. And if you can be part of this wave, and you can be part of the moving forward and create efficiencies and optimization in your business, you're going to be ahead of the wave. You're not going to be behind the wave. So finally, I'll just tell you is that we have this project called Aviator Peeps. And if you don't know crypto, you can talk to me. But if you do, you can go to OpenSea.io. And all that is a marketplace where people buy and sell NFTs. And if you want more information about the project, you can go to my website at DigitalAircraft.io, and you can learn all about it. And if you want to watch any of our replays, we're all over social media in these places. But if I could just tell you, if you want to watch the Blockchain and Aviation series, go to the YouTube channel, which is Digital Aircraft 1. And they're all there, and they're easy to find. And you might learn something, or you can pick out the ones that are the most interesting to you. And I hope that you are enthusiastic about creating efficiency in aviation with digital. I am, and I hope I find more people that are passionate, just like you guys, to do that. Thanks for listening today.
There were no questions in the app for you, Mark, but I imagine many have been answered. How do people contact you during the show? Are you going to be?
I'll be here and around. Actually, we do live interviews and things during the show. I've already done with Ed this morning. I have 3 or 4 of them I've committed to. If you have a company and if you would like to get your message out to people that are listening, I'm happy to do a live interview with you about what your business is and what your company does. We'll just go out here into the floor and we'll do one and let people know. How can people buy from you if they don't know who you are? Okay? I had so many people tell me that when I worked for companies. They'd say, I didn't even know you existed. Well, okay. So we need to do a better job of getting our message out. And if you'd like for me to help you get your message out, I'm happy to do that. We'll be out there helping people. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.